Hey everyone, and welcome to our monthly GitKraken workshop series. This upcoming workshop, which we're about to show, is titled Making Sense of Multi-Repo Madness. And so our presenters here in this presentation will go through and talk about what are the pain points of working with multiple repositories. Usually it's pretty tough to find out what's happening, which branch is checked out, where did I last leave off work, or even perform multi-repo actions. You're left to just figure things out manually one at a time. But this workshop sets out to provide you a way to address some of that pain and get so much information available to you at a glance. Before we get into the workshop proper, I just want to do a quick shout out that if you like this series, please feel free to do all the YouTube things, give us a like, and if you want to see more, we invite you to hit that subscribe button. We do plan to roll out more workshops here in the future. All right. With that said, let's dive into the workshop.
So yeah, before we go ahead and get started, I'll introduce myself. I'm Trevor Polidore. I'm a product manager at GitKraken that leads the development of our developer tools. And today we're going to be talking about making sense of multi-repo madness. And Kevin's going to go ahead and get us started and can introduce himself and dive right in.
Sure. Thank you, Trevor. Should be a screen share starting now. If you can just confirm when you see that come up.
I can see. Yep.
Excellent. Welcome, everyone. As Trevor said, feel free to drop questions in the Q&A and chat. There's going to be a section towards the end where we will circle back. So anything that you want to dive in deeper to. This is going to be making sense of multi-repo madness. Now, Jonathan Silva was supposed to be joining us for this part. Unfortunately, there were some technical difficulties, so it is going to just be me. My name is Kevin Bost. I'm a Microsoft MVP. I'm a senior software architect with a company out of Spokane, Washington called Intelitech. But today, I'm here as a GitKraken ambassador to talk about one of my favorite features. So just kind of going over the agenda of what we have going on today, of multi-repo madness and kind of how we can contain this. As developers, we are often working on more than one repository. It's nice when it's just one simple thing, but rarely things stay small and simple. And how can we go through and manage it? We'll take a look at workspaces as well as insights. And then there's going to be some use cases and practical examples. It's not going to be slides. I'm going to actually show off the tool so we can see exactly how it works, and then some Q&A at the end. For people unaware, GitKraken has quite a few developers, lots of organizations worldwide. If this is a tool that you use and love, like myself, you are in good company. The other thing to be aware of is GitKraken. Most people will associate it with just the client, but there's actually a whole suite of tools, everything from GitLens on VS Code, the GitKraken CLI, which is one of my personal favorites. There's the browser extension, recently GitKraken Dev, and then GitLens for JetBrains is forthcoming. Now, when going through and working with a lot of different repositories, teams have different ways that they like to go through and organize their working spaces. Some people favor the mono-repo versus multi-repo approaches. Both have their pros and cons. Here we can kind of see just at least how GitKraken goes through and organizes some of their work that they have in terms of breaking things apart, where we've got like the GitKraken client, where there are multiple projects, each with their own repository. And then there are also projects that span multiple repositories and various microservices, things like the workspaces feature that we're going to be looking at more today, or things like the API sync and that kind of thing. So regardless of which way you approach, workspaces can certainly help make that workflow easier for you. And then I'm not going to go through and read everything on the slide, but when dealing with the multi-repo approach, there are the pros and cons. Keeping track of where everything is, especially when work is spread across multiple repositories, you can find yourself needing to dig through multiple issue providers. I think of GitHub a lot, of having to try to click through the different issue tabs, trying to figure out, hey, where do I need to pick up new work to go and start working on? Where did I leave off? If you've got work in progress that spans multiple repositories, sometimes getting a visualization of that can be difficult to know where you're at. And then also just trying to keep things in sync. The number of times I've worked with other developers where they're reporting a bug simply because, hey, you didn't pull latest on this other repository over here that you didn't realize you needed. That kind of thing is a common issue that pulls up. Mono repos can sometimes help with that because it separates or consolidates where everything is rather than having it separate out into a lot of different places. But when you get into the mono repo, then you have to start making a bigger investment in your DevOps because now everything is in one place. The simple, hey, I'm just going to build, test, deploy doesn't always work great with a mono repo. You often have to do things a little more targeted, especially as the mono repo grows over time. So workspaces are a way of bringing all of those things together, being able to group all of your repositories into a single place so that you can actually see and manage all of the issues, the PRs, the work in progress, and have a centralized place where when you start your day in the morning, you can say, okay, here's where I left off, here's what I need to work on. And this is just showing a similar thing for a workspace that GitKraken might use of pulling together the client, GitKraken.com accounts, styles are similar to be able to have that one place to see it all. Something that people will often associate with workspaces is the ability to sync that data back up to the cloud, because it's nice having it just on your local machine, but being able to bring it back and forth. But local workspaces, even if you don't want to have that cloud syncing, or even if you're on the GitKraken CLI, you can create a local workspace. And a local workspace, it gives you at least some of the benefits in that you can now take things like fetch all or pull all on multiple repositories all as one big group rather than needing to move around and pull all of those. I know I've worked with some developers that have written scripts to basically do this same type of interaction of, hey, I know that when I start every day, I'm going to just pull down everything and then we'll go through and start my working and do that. That's great, but you had to do this. With workspaces, you can do it really quick and easy. And like I said, even on the GitKraken CLI, it's real easy, which is awesome. The cloud workspace benefits takes that kind of local mindset and now expands it to where you can do syncing between all of your stuff. So this thing here is showing off the focus view where you can find all of your individual work and then start immediately taking action on things without needing to move around to a lot of different places. The focus view is where I like to start my day because it shows me, hey, here's where I left off. Here's what I'm working on. Here's the important stuff that's right at the top of what I need to take action on. But then we can take that one step further. Rather than just being something that the cloud workspace is useful for an individual developer, we can now expand that and say, okay, how can this be useful for a team? Now, specifically, being able to share that workspace between all members of your team so that everyone has the same information that they're working with. This is really valuable, especially when onboarding a new developer. You don't have to say, okay, here are the 5 different repositories you need to go and clone and pull all of that down. Here's the workspace, hit the clone all button, you're done, right? Off to the races. We've now got everybody in sync. Everybody's now clear. You don't have to give a lot of links of, okay, here's where the issue board is. Here's where the repos are. Everything's just in one place. New developer gets added to the team. They get access to the workspace and you're off to the races. It is absolutely wonderful. And then finally, some insights here. So the insights inside of workspaces give you kind of a high level picture. You'll hear people talk about various things like DORA metrics or similar, and this will show you some of that information. You can see on the screenshot here, average cycle time, average throughput. It's really important on all these metrics. These are indicators. They don't necessarily indicate a goal that you should be striving for of, hey, we want our average throughput to be, 35 by the end of this sprint. That's not a good thing. These things are useful for potentially forecasting of saying, hey, where do we think we can get to? What is realistic for our team to achieve based upon actual data of what we've been looking at? Or, hey, maybe there's problems. Oftentimes, metrics suffer, at least here in the US, around Christmas time on the holidays when half the team takes vacation. Your metrics are going to go down because half the team's off. But it's important to be able to track that so that you at least have that point of reference of, okay, When half the team's off, our velocity kind of goes down here, and you can start to use that to get better indication. It also can be useful to know, hey, is there a problem going on here? Because sometimes, something comes through the pipe, some new feature, and it just kind of clogs the team, and everything kind of comes to a stop. And having these to be able to say, hey, it looks like we're starting to suffer. Hey, is there something we need to do? Do we need to start talking to another team? Do we need to bring more people in? What's going on? It's oftentimes a great starting point for a conversation. Okay, use cases and then Q&A. So use cases, we're going to stop with the slides and we're going to do something real because I'm a developer and slides are no fun for anybody. We want to see real stuff. So this is GitKraken client. I'm running latest 9.11.1 for anybody who's watching the recording in the future. And we're going to start off just on the main home screen here with workspaces. So if you are interested in getting started, this is one of the easiest spots. You'll also note here there is a teeny little icon. Whoop, if I can get it all the way up into the corner. This little guy here that you'll see is the workspace tab. If you close it, it doesn't actually close. It just kind of collapses down to that icon. But the starting place will be a new workspace. And ideally, you probably are looking for a cloud workspace, unless you're trying to just do something local where you're wanting to manage something yourself, which you see here. The local workspace is kind of just the cloud workspace with fewer features because it is just local onto your machine. Give it a name. Obviously, the most important thing is giving it a cool icon because that's what you see every day, or at least that's where I ascribe the value to it. And then a description, and then you can link it across to your team, and then also select a provider. Now, in my case, I've got GitHub lined up, but you can see that there's quite a few providers across the suite available to you between GitHub Enterprise, GitLab, Bitbucket, Azure DevOps, pretty much all of the big names. So rather than create a new one, we're going to jump in and take a look. So I'm specifically going to show off this workspace here that I have called MDIX. That's Material Design in XAML. So this is a open source project that I maintain, and there are multiple repositories across it. There's the main repository, but then I also have an examples repository that we put stuff in, and then a couple auxiliary projects that go along with it for being able to produce a nice demo, have some better testing. And we can see here that on each of these repositories, it's showing me, hey, where is it cloned locally? And then more importantly, where am I at? What branch am I sitting on? And you can jump out to GitHub to your provider if you want to. But right up here along the top, these are where you get a lot of value from these buttons. Is you can go through, you can fetch all, pull all, and then I've intentionally left kind of this one here not cloned, so it's not on my file system at the moment. If I were to check this box here, you can see that it says clone one. If you come in here, brand new dev box where nothing's down yet, you'll note that you end up with this situation where you can actually end up cloning all your repositories and being able to pull them down, which is just amazing for getting somebody up to speed and being able to pull it through. But if you select all of them, you can see, okay, we can just automatically fetch everything, pull everything, bring them up. We're off to the races. Awesome. Let's take a look at focus view, because again, this is oftentimes where I like to start. Now, this is an open source project on GitHub, and so as you can see, sometimes things get stale. In my day-to-day work, most of these things are going to be sitting in the sprint range, so 0 to 2 weeks ish range of typically what's going on here. But you can see I've got a work in progress item. I've got some issues lined up here. There's a couple PRs as well, except for mine are currently showing none because I have no open PRs. The really awesome thing here is if inside of your focus view, if you come in, start your day and say, okay, yep, this is the item that I want to start working on, you can come straight in here and say, great, let's, we're going to do this brush rename. Let's just create a branch. And we can come in here and say, okay, let's go ahead and base this one on master, create branch, and we're off to the races. Just like that, we've gone from I can find my work to I have a branch, I'm ready to start working, and we're off to the races. And actually, we'll just go ahead and create this just to show it. So we can see the branch dropped in here. I'm inside of a new tab. This is the same tab you would see if you were to open the repository in GitKraken client. And then me personally, I like Alt-O because I'm on Windows or Commando or I believe on Mac just to open up an Explorer window to be able to drop in and start, in my case, Visual Studio, pop open the solution and take off running. If you're a VS Code person, you've always got the open in VS Code option as well. Okay, cool. Along here as well, because as you can see, this list gets quite long. It is very common, especially for me, to say, you know what, there's a couple of these items that I really want to make sure I'm focused on and paying attention to. So you can just pin things straight to the top. And then occasionally there's things where it's like, yeah, I know this is on my list, but I don't want to think about it right now. So you do have the option to snooze items, either for you know, an hour, 4 hours, or until tomorrow. Basically, you know, hey, I'll get to this, but not till after my coffee, not till after lunch, or not until I've had a good night's sleep. That's kind of the way I usually go through it. Of, hey, this is kind of where I'm at. And my team members usually can tell when I've snoozed certain items of theirs. If you want to go through and pull something back that's been snoozed, it just moves over to this secondary tab here where you can go, oh, okay, yeah, let's bring it back. It's just kind of a holding bucket for things that I don't really want cluttering up my current workspace but I'm going to need to eventually get around to them. The other really nice thing here is this search, especially if you're hunting for it. You'll note each of these tabs, this search bar maintains across all of them. So as you're kind of filtering through each of these, you can go from all, issues, work in progress, and you can kind of start to segment down your search just to those areas that matter most to you, to be able to pull those things back. And then there's also some filtering over here for created by me, assigned to me, mentioned, similar. The other one that I want to show off here is the team view. And this is most valuable, especially when we start talking about those cloud workspaces, of being able to come in and say, hey, here are all of the issues for my team. Here are all of my team's pull requests. Because quite often when I'm coming in, I've gone to stand up, team member says, hey, you know, I've got some PRs out. Could people go and look at it? Great. Let me go through, pick on one of the authors and say, you know what, let's pick on Michael and see what PRs he has open. We can go through and get those reviewed. You can see some of these, they're kind of big. They're going to take a little while, and you start to see an indication of that with the complexity of, hey, you know, this is not something that you're going to sit down at really quick at. This is going to take a while versus a much smaller PR. And then similar thing with the PRs filter up here. The one nice thing here is you can start to filter down by individual repositories. So if it's like, hey, I only want to see PRs and I only want to see them on one of these repositories, you can start to filter that down and get a much more refined thing. The last thing I want to show off here is insights. And this is oftentimes, and we'll let it go through and pull all its data here real quick. But there is a filter over here for either 7 or 14 days. And this is where you can start getting those metrics that I talked about in the slides earlier, of being able to say, hey, what is our cycle time? What is our throughput? On my day-to-day projects, I will often use this usually on about a weekly basis, just to kind of usually give the team a cheer to say, hey, look at how much you guys have managed to get done in this period of time. But it's also useful to say, hey, you know, things started dropping off. What's going on? And usually there's a good explanation. Oftentimes the people I work with are great. Usually just with stand-up updates, we can go, yeah, you know, Bob was out sick, you know, things kind of went down a little bit. And the ticket that he was on, you know, ended up sitting for an extra 4 days because of that. Great, fine. It's useful as a measurement, not as a goal. Because the moment it becomes a goal, it starts to become meaningless. We've all heard those horror stories of managers that grade developers on lines of code or something ridiculous. And as soon as it becomes a goal, it becomes a worthless thing to measure. And so we want to use it as that measuring stick to guide, but not as an end goal in and of itself. Perfect. I see we've got a whole slew of questions coming in. Let's go through, and I'm just going to kind of take these in order, Trevor, unless there's something else I should be doing.
So, yeah, go ahead, and I'm happy to answer.
Yeah, so perfect. So Carl, is there a technical or practical limit to the number of repositories in a workspace? Trevor, I don't know if there is a technical limit. I don't know if you have insight into that or not.
We do for certain providers. There's a 100 repository limit, which is pretty high, and I think practically a lot of this data is fetched on load. So if you have a lot of repositories and loading all of the pull requests and issues for each repository, or just doing pull all, fetch all, it just might take some time. I think that's the biggest trade-off. But
yeah, and I know for me, if things are spread across that many repositories, at least because I think of like an Azure DevOps situation where there's a project with a bunch of repositories inside of it. Oftentimes, if there are hundreds of repositories inside of there, I'm probably going to make multiple workspaces just for my own conceptual level to keep track of how many there are and segment it down, because usually there's within that some sort of logical segmentation between each of those. So let's see, Mike, thanks for mentioning the options for both fetch and pull all. In the past, I would pull all. Oh, question disappeared. Oh, I missed that.
I think it was asking about, updating remotes with fetch or pull all. And so we do have, one thing to note with the migration to using the Git executable. So we're using the Git binary directly to run a lot of Git commands in the client moving forward versus we were using library node-git before. Currently, fetch and pull in the repo tab are using the embedded Git, but pull all and fetch all are not. So if you do see, and this will maybe come up in situations where you're, you have different things configured for different modes in your SSH config file. You may see that, and we are porting the workspace actions over to the Git executable in the next month or two. So any discrepancies should go away, but you always have the option to disable it for now, or you can reach out to support. We've had a couple users with that same issue, and they can help you troubleshoot if that isn't the case. So it should update remotes and everything the same, so you shouldn't have that problem.
Perfect. Yeah, and I'll just highlight in the preferences section underneath experimental, you can find that option, like Trevor was saying, for being able to enable or disable the using the Git executable. What is actually stored in the cloud workspace? Is any repo data stored, or is it strictly pointers? I believe it's strictly pointers. I don't believe the actual code data, that would be a lot to store. So I believe it's just the metadata about it.
Yep, that's correct. We don't store any of your code. It's just pointers to the repositories, so that if you were using a new machine or onboarding a different user on your team, they just know where the remotes are, and you can go ahead and select them all and clone them. We don't store any the actual data on our servers.
Perfect. And then, are you planning to support PRs in Bitbucket? So I think that's for you, Trevor.
Yeah. So
I'm just an ambassador. You can speak to forward plans.
Absolutely. I'm assuming this references pull request view within repo specifically. So you can manage pull requests, at least get some metadata on them from the issue tracker in the left panel, and also the focus view if you select that as your issue tracker. But we are discussing, since we only support viewing GitHub pull requests with the full pull request view on a repo tab. So you just click on a pull request in the left panel, it'll open details, comment history, etc. about each pull request. We are looking at supporting all of the other providers. We don't have a timeline yet, but we definitely are trying to support that whole workflow. So you should hear more about that soon.
Great. Let's see. Becky, can team workspaces be set for a group of individuals versus a set of repositories? Yes. So as long as your group of individuals is set up as a team inside of GitKraken, that is the grouping that you're looking for. So this, so just up here inside of the name, there's the little people plus button. This is the option to be able to go through and do, and mine's actually going to pop me over to do account management, which I don't really want to do. It will give you the option of grouping users together. Now, oftentimes I found that the teams that I set up typically mirror a similar set of users. Like, again, I'll go with Azure DevOps because I do a bunch there. The teams that are grouped there as well. But yes, you can go through and create organizational teams within inside of there, and then the workspace can be shared with the selected teams and people that way. Let's see here. Do there. Let's see. Jonathan, can I swap multiple repositories to the same named branch from the workspace, or do I have to click through them one by one to swap? That is a great question. At present, there is not a way of swapping through based upon the git ref or the branch that you want, just on name. Because I assume the idea is to switch through to, say, the main branch on all the repositories are similar. I don't know, Trevor, if you have any additional feedback. I would probably say, if it's not covered, there is a great the suggestions section for GitKraken is a great place to drop those things in. And any feedback, my experience is the team is very responsive, especially the support at GitKraken. I'll see if I can make Trevor blush for a moment, is top notch. They do a fantastic job if you have any issues or feedback. So just know that suggestions are like any other dev process. Everything has to be prioritized and worked on. There's a finite number of hours in a day before things get done. But there's been a number of suggestions that I've put through that have eventually made it all the way back into the product, which is great. And it's always awesome to see one of your suggestions get closed as, done, coming in the next release. That always makes me feel good. But great question. I'm not missing anything there, am I, Trevor? I don't believe there's any way to switch based upon the name of the branch as a bulk action.
Oh yeah, everything is repository based. So in the repositories view today, you just see that you're currently checked out branch in the branch column. You won't be able to see all workspaces that are on X branch name or something like that, if I understand correctly. Yeah, it's an interesting use case, and we're super eager to learn how everyone works and make a solution that fits for you. So appreciate. You can either reach out, support@gitkraken.com, or the link Jonathan posted in chat is our feedback board, and you can put feature suggestions there that others can upvote and comment on, and we can have larger discussions about how that might work in the client. So appreciate that.
Perfect. Looks like that may be the end of the Q&A section. I want to thank everyone for coming and hanging out. Again, this is one of my favorite things. I really enjoy this feature. So if you haven't given it a shot, pull it up, try it out. And as always, please send those suggestions or feedback that you have. That kind of stuff really helps drive what gets implemented. So with that, Trevor, I will hand it back over to you. I don't know if we have anything else to cover.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. And thank you again, everyone, for taking the time to chat with us. Thanks again, and take care.
Happy coding.